now this summer collecting and organizing the data from the 2016-17 school year, the last school year. And we know that there's already an increase. We can see it already in the data, even though I haven't got it all in yet. Last year, last school year, well, the 2015-16 school year, we had over 22,000 kids just in K-12, homeless students that were counted enrolled in K-12, while there were more than 2,000 enrolled in preschool and Head Start programs. And this is even though preschool is not a required grade level. And I know that a lot of your programs are at capacity anyway. And so it's just amazing that we are able to enroll as many kids as we are doing. There was another study that just recently came out from the Administration for Children and Families, which took data from a number of sources and tried to count in the number of homeless children under age 6, those enrolled as well as those who are not enrolled or connected to any programs. And they believe that there are over 20,000 kids, over 20,000 children under age 6 who are homeless in Oregon at any given year. So that's equivalent to the number that are in all K-12. And that, of course, is very alarming and unnerving for anybody who works with children and knows about trauma and you know, how trauma affects children in early grade levels. So everything that you're doing to enroll these kids and help these kids is going to benefit them in K-12 as well, as I'm sure you already know. Anyway, so beginning in the fall, I'm going to be doing regional trainings on the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Program. Chiefly, I call them liaison trainings, but in fact, anybody is welcome to come, any staff from any of your programs. It's a good way to connect with people who are doing this work locally and share with the people that you're already exchanging data and seeing at other meetings and stuff. So if you are interested in joining us for one of these meetings, please email me. I also have a listserv where I make announcements about this program and about the trainings and resources we have available on a regular basis. And so I'd be happy to send you the link to subscribe to that too. My email address is dona.bolt@state.or.us. And I will type that into the chat box for you and be happy to entertain any questions you might have about the program or the data or whatever. Thanks very much. Thanks, Michael.
Sure. I mean, I know I have problems. I have problems, but I also have questions. So, but I don't want to jump in before anybody else. If you have a question, feel free to type it in the question box. Donna, can you say a little bit about? I think you're being a little bit modest, maybe, but why is that Oregon's been so successful compared to other states and even within states in our region?
Well, I need to spread the
love.
The love here, yes, excellent. And we've got a wonderful collaboration here that you just don't see paralleled in other states. I was just recently visiting with my counterparts in Washington State and in Idaho, and things are different in Oregon. We have a very strong collaboration between K-12 and Oregon pre-K programs. And I have been just really, really excited about the way the local OPK programs have been generous with their data and with the, you know, finding the opportunities to collaborate with the liaisons. And so we can all look at the whole family and help the whole family. And in a lot of ways, your programs are helping the people who are working in K-12 to understand the importance of preschool and early education opportunities too. But I forgot to mention too, we've also got a really dynamite thing happening with child care providers as well. Kelly Walker over at the child care portion of the early learning division worked with me and several other people over there, and they've developed a training module for the 25,000 child care providers on how they can um, work with homeless families and what to do when they have homeless families there, how they can recognize when a family needs extra help and who to go to for other things. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing for kids birth to 6 that you just don't see in other states. And anyway, so I'll pat everybody on the back with that.
Practicing my wait time. I'm always practicing my wait time. But if other people have questions, you should sure jump in. Donna, I'll work with you too to maybe gather some of that information about the upcoming events that you're hosting, and be sure to send those out with our follow-up materials for this conference or this webinar.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
You directly, that's fine. But I'll send out whatever links or calendars you can provide and help people get on board.
Real good. Okay, that'd be great.
Well, I really appreciate Donna your time, and I know we tried to schedule this for last month and schedules didn't work out. So thank you very much. One thing I'll say is that there's a pretty nice piece in the Oregonian about the report that came out from the ICPH. And my only comment on the report or the article in the Oregonian is don't read the comment section. It's very disturbing. Oregonians of all kinds chime in about homelessness. It can be a little discouraging. So stay with the positive. We're a strengths-based program.
I second that emotion, Michael. I really do.
All right, Donna, I know you have to go, so you're welcome to hang out, but thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care. Terrific. Well, next up is our updates and reminders and check-in with analyst Teresa. Teresa, take it away.
Thank you. I came late to the party, so I missed the very first part of Donna's presentation. But I really want to, chime in and say that the more we can get to see these pieces of work happening, the more I appreciate what we're doing all over the state. And to move on from that, as most of you know, because of the email, the data collection time period is opened. I want to let you all know how much I appreciate your patience with that, because this is my first go round on it and it's a learning curve for me. So any advice you have about the ODE data collection period, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm taking each and every one of your questions and using them as a learning opportunity for myself on this process. The grant documents, I've had a couple requests for grant documents, and we do still have a grant award document that has to go out that confirms your dollar amounts. And I was going to hold off on sending deliverables documents until those grant award documents went out, but it's sounding more and more like you guys have a really strong need to have them early. So I am trying to prepare the templates for you to have them start rolling out by the end of this week. And I hope that that helps everybody move things along and not feel log jammed later. Document alignment input is something we've kind of been discussing. It came about in part because of some observations internally, as well as some observations made during talking to all of you guys at the meeting in July. We're going to be doing a lot of looking at not just documents, but processes, and seeing how we can get some alignment between what you already do for Head Start if you are a dual funded program, and what we're asking for, and also look to make sure that the work we're asking you to do really fits in with the deliverables. So I'm going to be working with a team and also collecting input on any observations you have or any insights or thoughts you would like me to take into account and take back to this team. And then we'll also, it's not going to be a decision-making team, but it will be a team that then brings some information back out to you guys so we can talk about how we can make the work easier. And I probably just rambled that a bit, but hopefully you guys are available to give me all the input I could ask for. And I think that's all I had on hand, Michael.
Yeah, I'm going to say a little bit more about that, the summer meeting that we had with OHSA and the follow-up that ELD is doing, but that's great to hear. And we are interested in reducing duplication of submitting information and aligning what we're doing with what the feds collect. So yeah, we're interested in your thoughts. We don't actually see, you know, what you all are getting from the feds or what you have for other interactions, say the hub. So we don't always see that all the time. So we're interested in figuring out how to align that better. Thank you so much, Teresa. Oh, we have a question that popped up. Teresa, there's a question here about the recent instructions for the data collection. It says it still has areas that say content to come and broken bookmarks.
Okay. Well, I will take a look at that. I will take a look at that. And if you want to go ahead and send me an email that lets me know exactly where those spots are that you're noticing it, I would be happy to take a look. A lot of the links I have are not new links because the information hasn't changed much. So I can go through and double check those and make sure that we have the right links in there for you.
Great. Yeah, it's a little bit of a funny or a tricky issue because we're sort of the pass-through for that program, but we don't actually control it. So, but we're happy to help fix it. That makes sense. Thank you for that question, Julie. Any other questions before Teresa gets off the hot seat? I have 3 crows in my backyard who are having a very important meeting. They're talking. They've run out of blueberries to steal from the bush. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll jump in here with a little bit of discussion of program calendars and other issues for OPK programs. So the new performance standards talk about sort of minimum times that kids need to be in session. And I'm not talking specifically about duration, like how long the day is, but more like what the calendar says needs to be happening. So, and if you go into the details, it differs by program model a little bit, but basically they need to have 8 months of class time. Not 8 months on the calendar that the program is running, but 8 months of class time. And so we're requiring classrooms to be open by the 31st of September. That's fairly typical for everybody. Usually people getting going, you know, mid-September or 3rd week of September after some pre-service. But we're supporting classrooms being open by the last day of September as a drop dead date. And then the other thing that the standards do require is that programs plan for closures, plan for a reasonable number of closures. So last year was really tough, I know that. And the dual funded programs work with the feds to sort of make a reasonable accommodation, and we tried to work with our state-only partners, but build into your calendar at least some reasonable number of snow days or ice days or tornado days or yeah, I think I said September 30th. 30 days has September. Yes, exactly right, Stephanie. We have not changed the calendar for the OPK program. So yes, last day of September. That's what I meant. I mean, if you're not open on 9/31, then that's a problem. And then we may be removing, in fact, we probably will remove slots for programs if you have whole classrooms that have not started by the end of September. Those need to be open, and if they're not open for whatever reason, then we'll probably remove those slots, and then we're working on our process to redistribute slots based on community needs and so forth. or to use that money for other purposes. We're working with the association on developing what the priorities might be. So need to be open by the end of September. Thanks for the correction, Stephanie. And make sure you're planning for calendar closure days and so forth. And then after the 1st of October, we'll follow the Head Start Act regarding under-enrollment and unobligated funds. So for dual-funded programs, that means working with you and your federal partner on a corrective action plan for under-enrollment. And then for the state-only programs, I'll work with you and we'll try to figure out some solutions, and we'll follow the step-by-step guidance in the Head Start Act about how to address chronic under-enrollment. But I think part of the takeaway here is we won't treat closed classrooms as an under-enrollment problem. That's actually not the right lens. That's an unopened classroom problem, and that's different from under-enrollment. So there's a little bit about OPK program calendars. So as you develop your calendars, chart out the weeks that you need. 8 times 4 is like 32. And then you got to figure some winter closure time, and people have spring closure time. Then you got to throw some snow days in there, some ice storm 2000 in there. That's that about calendars. I wanted to speak a little bit about professional development and coaching, and there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement around this. The new standards require what they call research-based professional development, and I've included in a 4-page handout from National Center from Head Start around what the qualities of research-based, what the research tells us that effective professional development has to have. And part of the challenge, that we all know this, is that our previous practice has not produced the needed improvement that we want to see, that we need to see that kids need to have to be more ready for kindergarten and for life. So we're working on our systems of professional development to make sure that they're effective. There is a strong research base that teachers need facilitated professional learning communities. And then we also know that coaching requires intensive interactions with individual teachers, including observation, modeling, and frequent communication. This is all out of the new performance standards. The teachers learning and collaborating framework or format that's highlighted in the Head Start materials, and we've been talking about that for a while, that's a combination of a professional learning community and intensive coaching. So that is a method of making sure that teachers get everything they need if they've been selected for intensive coaching. And I would say that we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That is, we want to make sure that all teachers are in professional learning communities that are facilitated. And so all teachers can be in a TLC, that's fine. That's a perfectly wonderful, valid format for providing coaching, and if you individualize it, then it's an intensive experience. But we also want to make sure that all teachers are getting a professional learning community if you're not using the TLC model. And I wanted to highlight a little bit about the research base and then do a quick poll. So be ready for poll. This is a research report that came out a couple of years ago about the early learning workforce, and it's been it's really a guidebook for a lot of work that we try to do and going forward and so forth. And as I mentioned before, the National Center on Early Childhood Development, Teaching and Learning did a summary of some of the work in that bigger report. This the National Institute of Medicine and National Research Council report is gigantic, and then the NCECDTL did a summary of some of the important parts. And here are some of the things that professional development systems must have going on. People need learning communities. We talked about this before. And within that, there's a couple parts there, right? There's a learning community, and then there's motivated to improve. And so part of the job of educational leadership and coaching is to develop folks' motivation based on adult learning principles, which is why the Head Start standards around coaching insist that coaches have some adequate experience and training in adult learning principles, because motivating adults is not always easy. It's hard to motivate myself sometimes, much less other people. As I mentioned before, we need leadership that facilitates folks' capacity to learn, and really provides the kind of supports that teachers need to grow and develop. And as leadership develops coaching and professional development systems, there's a sense sometimes that teachers have, and I'm sure we all have this, that the supports they're getting can be not always aligned, that are not always people are tracking what's going on, that the training that I did yesterday doesn't seem to be matching up very well with the training I did last week or last month. So that's why we need a system that's really coordinating all of that. And coordination is one of the words that the standards call out. Programs need plans to assess and evaluate the effectiveness of your programs. As we've highlighted a couple times, in our new grant language, it says that programs will use class for program improvement. And so as you develop that system, think about the best ways that class can be used for program improvement. That means, I think, minimally sort of capturing a really good sense of where your teachers are at in the fall, and then providing ongoing coordinated professional development with the goal of improving those scores, and then assessing those systems to see are they really making progress. Not waiting until March 31st, the end of March, to conduct another evaluation to see if they're effective, because you want to know as you go and make adjustments. One of the things that is a challenge, I think, in terms of professional development is that teachers are very practical, and that's a strength. You have to be very practical to be an early educator. How's this going to help me tomorrow, kind of a thing. And at the same time, it's up to leadership to provide some framework so that the activities and thinking that teachers are doing that has a connection with what we know in general about how children learn, what we know in general about how adults learn. We want teachers to be pragmatic, that is, applying research and theory to practical situations. And then we need programs to be providing ongoing supports so that teachers have chances to practice and reflect and practice again. And the last thing we want is for these programs to be connected to the standards that we have for how educators learn and how children learn. So that's a somewhat wordy, but kind of a good summary of qualities that professional development systems in our programs need to have. And so here comes the poll. I'm going to paste in that's smart enough, I'm going to paste into the chat box the link to the poll, and there it is. So if you could click on that, and we'll take just 3 minutes, 3-minute timer to complete this poll. It's 9:28. So go do the poll, and by the end of the session, we'll have some results. Now I really need some poll music. Teresa, can you show tune?
I don't have any queued up right now.
Okay.
About the most I can do at the moment is give you some allergy coughing, but I don't think that's appropriate.
We're waiting for folks to complete the poll. And just giving people time. Responses in. This is a what's going well, what do I need to work on kind of a poll. Very interesting results trickling in. Just one more minute. It's timed. Really needs, we got to work on this, Teresa. This whole music. We need like a 3-minute song. Please don't say Jeopardy.
I'll create a playlist and we'll get it going.
Yeah, exactly. Spotify, it'll have 1 million followers.
Exactly.
ELD, OPK webinar poll playlist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a moneymaker. Almost done. All right. And responses, I bet we're going to get one more in about 2 seconds, and then we'll call it good. I see that not everybody's participated, and this will not affect your grant. Unlikely to affect your grant if you're not participating. Wouldn't you say that's true, Teresa?
I'm not going to commit to anything at this point.
Wow. Well, I'm committed. You know the difference between involved and committed? It's bacon and eggs. The chicken's involved, but the pig's committed. Well, let's take a look, shall we? I've got the, we've got 10 responses, which the audience can see here. And for the state-only programs, we had folks saying integrating theory do well and following educator standards doing well. And then for room for improvement, using data, that's always a challenge. And then taking place in Suzanne's saying it doesn't allow to click on the poll. I'm not sure why. We have lots of responses. So I'll send it out, Suzanne, and we'll make sure that you get a chance to chime in. You might just copy and paste it into a browser. And then for federal programs, let's take a look. Lots of skilled leaders, so that's great to hear. Programs feel like the leadership that's leading their coaching and professional development systems are strong. And interesting, so more confidence about ability to use data to plan for improvements. That's terrific. And then room for improvement, kind of all over the map. Whether or not we have learning communities, whether the resources are coordinated and aligned, how well you're integrating theory, how well the ongoing provision of supports is. These are all challenges. So it's interesting from a technical assistance point of view. How do you follow up when people are over the map? So that means sort of there's a need for general supports and thinking about how to do these things. Well, I hope that was a useful exercise for you all as you think about your professional development systems and how to improve them and meet the new standards. Let's keep going. Thank you for participating. If you didn't get a chance to participate, that's fine. This item, the Workforce Development Ongoing Professional Learning paper from the National Center, is available in the handouts section of today's webinar. It's the one called Ongoing Training. And then the big report, there's a summary of that big report, Transforming the Workforce, that's available also in the handouts from today's webinar. So if you're interested in those, just feel free to click on those links in the handout section and download those. I do want to, as I mentioned before, highlight a little bit about the wonderful conversation that we had at the directors meeting this summer in Wilsonville, where our effort was to facilitate some group discussions about sort of big buckets of challenges and issues that we're facing and how to address them. We did establish a couple, 3 work teams for some of the key issues. We tried to prioritize based on passion and interest at the meeting. And for each work team, there is an ELD staff person who's assigned as a facilitator, and we'll be getting meetings scheduled soonly. And then a little bit about a project that I'm working on is that it's been a while since we really looked at how well we're collecting information from OPK programs and providing feedback. So I've been asked to look at the new performance standards and ask the question, in what way are our programs able to demonstrate to us that they're successful at meeting the standards? What are the criteria that we're using to assess the submissions that we have for you? Do we have good alignment between the submissions and the new standards? Are the instructions clear? And so forth. So that's a project that I'm working on this late summer, and during the fall, I'll be sharing some of that. Our goal is that the work that we ask you to do is clear enough so that there isn't a need to refer to outside documentation in order to complete that work, and that in completing the work, as much as possible, it shows that your program is able to meet the standards. And then we want to have clear processes to address if you're stuck or if you're feeling that you need help on successfully addressing a standard, then how do we figure that out and provide the right help at the right time? So there's that about that. I did want to share some good news, which is that we have made some progress on the long-rumored reduced item assessment. As you know, for OPK programs, the CS Gold is the designated assessment tool that allows us to compare kiddos across programs and across time. But there's been strong interest for quite a while in having a smaller number of items on the assessment tool for teachers. And so a work group at the Early Learning Division has been working on this problem, and I wanted to share a draft overview, and then I'll have, and we're also soliciting feedback. So let me flip to the overview, and then I'll give you the link so you can see it and give us some feedback. I'll just take a second here. Great. So here's the draft reduced items assessment. And as you can clearly see, the way it's structured is on the left column, these are items that we're planning to include or we're proposing to include in the reduced item assessment. And then if we've moved anything to the middle column, the optional items, it'll show up there. So, and then to the right of that, we provide a rationale about why we're, showing why we're making the decision that we're making. If that makes sense. So just want to make sure everybody's seeing the same thing. Okay, so currently we're proposing to keep all of the social emotional objectives and dimensions in the revised reduced item assessment. And the rationale is that we continue to think, I think along with you all, that social emotional teaching and learning is really foundational to our classrooms being successful, that without that, kids just aren't successful at engaging in activities, engaging with peers, responding to teachers, and developing their brains and their bodies in a way that's healthy. So we're planning to keep all of those items, and that's 10. So sliding down then to physical, we're proposing to move a couple of the gross motor items to the optional category. And I want to clarify that the plan right now, I mean, I'm sure I'm like you, I'll believe it when it happens, but this is what we understand from teaching strategy, from my teaching strategies as possible, is that at the state level, we would turn off some of these optional items so that the tool that gets passed through to your programs would not include these optional items. They would be hidden. But you as administrators would have the freedom to turn back on optional items if you thought that they were crucial or that you were something you were emphasizing. So the plan, the proposal, is to give you quite a bit of flexibility. So that's what I understand from TS Gold is possible. Sean has a question, and the answer is yes. Yes, I'm sharing this exact tool with ed folks at the cluster tomorrow in Roseburg. So including the link to give feedback. So people will have a chance to give feedback. Our proposal is to have this ready to go for fall. So we have some time, but not a ton of time. So that's why we're showing this now. Somebody has their hand up. So let's see who that is. Sean has her hand up. Sean, did you want to chime in?
Oh, that was an accident, Michael. Sorry, but I'm glad you're sharing it tomorrow. They'll have the best feedback for you, I think.
Okay. Great. Right. So, so in this one, we're thinking that dimension 6, which is kind of a general question about gross motor skills, can be a good marker for the whole world of gross motor stuff. That it's unlikely, it's possible, but it's unlikely that a kiddo would rank high in item 6 and low in items 4 and 5, because we're talking about basically how well does the kiddo coordinate their muscles. I've got another hand. Let me make sure I get to them. Okay, good, awesome. So continuing. And then we kept the 2 fine motor ones because we think those are both pretty important. That is, one is really about manipulating objects and how well kids do with that, and then the other is on those early writing skills. And so we want to encourage teachers to be teaching and assessing around both of those. As you know, any assessment that you have does drive teaching at some level. So we have to think about when we move items to an optional category, what are we losing? I think as the team worked on this, we felt like, you know, for everyone that there's always a good reason to keep something at some level. But when you reduce the items, you're ending up prioritizing the ones that remain. And so that's kind of how we think about some of these things. It's like, rather than emphasizing balancing, we want to emphasize writing and drawing. We've got a couple changes here in the language section. I'll shrink it up just a little bit so people can see. We're proposing to keep 8A and make optional category 8, dimension 8B. And our thinking there is that we want kids to be able to understand speech. That's the big question. The follows directions one in our estimation, is often tied up with all these other things. Like, if you say, Pat, go sit in the circle and sit crisscross, and they don't do it, is it because they don't understand the language, or is it because, circle number 4 is really boring? Or is it that they're in a bad mood, or and so forth? Or maybe it's not, English is not their first language. So the following directions, I think, ends up getting mixed up with other questions like social, emotional, adult-child relationships, self-regulation, and so forth. So that's why we're making that optional. And then 9A, we're keeping in terms of using a big vocabulary. I think we want teachers to be expanding kiddos' vocabulary. That's a big priority in terms of developing kids' language capacity. The speaking clearly and using conventional grammar, it turns out that there's all kinds of ways that 3- and 4-year-olds can speak that include lots of grammatical errors that really don't persist much over time. Normal talking and listening handles those. And for kids who have for kids who are not speaking clearly, there is a process to assess that from an IEP point of view. So anyway, we wanted to emphasize, as we said, we want kids talking in conversation, telling stories in their play, and working on projects and learning new vocabulary. And that we think that for dual language learners, what's clear speaking and what's grammatical is often has a different developmental trajectory. And so let's just focus on kids in conversation using new words as the way to think about what language is about. Having said all that, it's a little tricky. Sorry about that. Nope. 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 So, sorry. Okay, let's keep going. So for cognitive skills, we're proposing to keep all of them. We really want to emphasize intellectual growth and development in our early childhood programs. Those are the thinking skills and the reasoning skills and the puzzling skills and the curiosity that we want to encourage in our kiddos to get them ready for kindergarten and for life. So we're proposing to keep all of those. Ditto with literacy. So we think there's good reasons to maintain our focus on early literacy as foundational to lots of other learning and development. So proposing to keep all those items. Sliding down some. Mathematics, same thing. There aren't as many items, and there's a big effort on promoting mathematical thinking in early childhood. We want teachers to recognize and help them recognize that mathematical thinking needs to happen in lots of different ways. And so we're planning to keep on all those. Now we come down to the content areas, science and technology. So we're proposing to keep the first one, which is about the skills that involved in scientific curiosity and scientific thinking. So that's observing carefully and hypothesizing and trying things out. Those are really fantastic thinking tools that we want to encourage teachers to be learning and promoting and assessing. The next 4 are really about content. And we think that the first one, the 24, is really the gateway to learning about all those things, and that those are really curriculum questions rather than assessment questions. As you probably know, there is no developmental path for these content area items, 25, 26, 27, 28. It's not at all clear that there's a clear place where someone should be as a 3-year-old versus a 5-year-old on these items. So keeping the 24 one, which is really about an approach to problem solving and thinking things through, seems good. Under social studies, we're keeping the first one, demonstrate knowledge of self, because we are persuaded that knowing about yourself and how you sit in the world is really what we want as a foundation for social studies. So who am I? Who's in my family? What do I know about my neighborhood? How am I different? How am I similar to my peers? These are the foundations for learning about these other things. So preserving that seems reasonable, and making the other ones optional. And then we made the arts optional, not because we don't think about it as important, but because, again, there's no real developmental trajectory here, and it's really a curricular focus rather than a developmental assessment focus. It ends up being sort of a checkbox activity for teachers. We'd rather have them spend that energy on creating fantastic art experiences for kiddos than checking that checkbox 3 times a year that basically is not a valid or reliable marker of anything important. So then of course the dual language learner assessment ones that are triggered by the home language survey, we keep those. We need to know how our kiddos are doing in their progression of understanding English and speaking it. So our draft there includes 49 items for all children, and misspelled makes 16 optional. It's not probably ideal. I'm sure some programs would be like, how can you take out that? And then other ones were like, why is it so many still? So we're trying to shoot the middle of that. If you have feedback, if you like it or don't like it, or you've got other suggestions or like that, I'm going to paste in the chat box the link. I think I'm smart enough to do that. Copy it and paste it in the link. And as I do that, except for Suzanne Miller, who says she can't do it. So there's the link. You should be able to copy it or just click on it, and you'll be able to see this sheet. There's some people hopping on, which is great. And it should be open for you to comment. So just highlight an area and make a comment. If you love a choice that we've made, feel free to add that. We're all strengths-based here. We're all friends here. And if you've got constructive feedback for us, remember that you can turn items back on. So think about that part. And then also, I think, just to point out, I would encourage you to let teachers turn things back on also. If you've got a kiddo if you've got a teacher who's really good at doing plays and puppet shows, and they've built their curriculum around that, right? That's what they're known for. Feel free to let them add 36 back in, because that's what they're passionate about, and that's what they really want to demonstrate a lot of progress on. I wouldn't want to get in the way of a teacher who's got an indicator, a dimension that really floats their boat from being able to add that back in. I can't think of the harm there. All these get rolled up into master categories in terms of whether kids are at performance expectations or not. So, and then we also are going to chat with the research folks at TS Gold. They may insist that we add some of these back in to keep things reliable. So if that happens, then that'll happen, and we'll just do that. Got a question here. I want to make sure I get to it. So Suzanne's saying she can't test the text, cannot copy and paste. So it's a fairly short URL. Suzanne, you might just try typing it in. It's Google split like that, and then it's lowercase LYLB capital E8. So anyway, yeah, sorry about that, Suzanne. I'm not sure why. Anyway, any comments you have, feel free. We're really hoping to get this rolling by the first checkpoint. Okay, pretty cool. So let's switch back to something. There we go. Sorry about that. I think we're on target. No. Yep. Here we go. Great. So that, and yes, we are interested in feedback. So that was that. We've had several requests for an updated TS Gold, or now My Teaching Strategies program guidance. We always send that out every year. And of course, in the grants, it says you'll follow that. So I want you to go away. Go away, big green monster. Can't figure out how to get that to go away, though. That's the problem. All right. So we are developing updated guidance for you all. As you know, the grant says you'll try to follow the state guidance that we provide. Some of the updates that we're insisting on or really emphasizing this year, we'd really like to make sure that your teachers are completing the Intro Gold course. TS Gold Teaching Strategies has worked. Sorry about that. It keeps flipping and I don't want it to. My Teaching Strategies. Wow, that begins to be highly annoying. They've worked hard on providing many more in-depth online courses for teachers to complete. There's a 2-hour Gold introduction, which we think is probably pretty crucial for teachers, especially given the new format for My Teaching Strategies. So would really strongly encourage, would expect that most teachers have completed that. It's something that can be done on teachers' own time. It's 2 hours, it's self-guided, and it does include a continuing education certificate. And we really want to emphasize that we need all teachers to be reliable. That is, we need all teachers to have completed the inter-rater reliability test before the first checkpoint. Some programs have offered that as a pre-service option, saying it's something that we really need to have before kids arrive. Others are saying we're going to provide some time in a computer lab for you to work on it. I'd be interested in other strategies that people have, but we would certainly want teachers to be reliable by that October checkpoint to make sure that the assessments that we're conducting are, measuring what we need to measure, and that that we can safely compare where kids are across programs and across time. That's something that we're going to be monitoring and following up with programs about. And then, as I mentioned before, in the Develop tab of My Teaching Strategies, there are additional courses. There's some additional 2-hour courses and some additional 10-hour courses. Those come with certification for continuing education. So as your teachers make progress in the registry or meet your program minimum standards for training, they should feel encouraged to go complete those. I want to give a chance for any questions or comments about that before I move on. So as we always do, we try to provide resources, especially resources for programs that are around questions of equity. This series of webinars coming up, they're free, and in your professional learning communities, if teachers are curious about these questions, like how do I guide play in childhood learning centers, the second one would be a great one. Perhaps the leadership team or an education team could look at this question about what does it mean to be supporting social emotional learning as an administrator, as a coordinator. There is a webinar coming up around class goal setting. I think this would be particularly fantastic for ed staff and coaches. 2 folks leading the course. It's free. It's coming up on the 21st of August at 2, I think that's 11 our time. So you might want to double check that. There's that, the Early Childhood Institute at Western Oregon. It's coming up on the 9th through the 11th. Play in a standards-based world. Navigating that tension, always important. The Office of Head Start is hosting several half-hour webinars around the revision of the ELD website. So they've updated the website. It's a new format. Some like it better, some like it not. Some like it, yeah. So those are available if your ed coordinators and other ed specialists are frequently navigating the ECLIC as they should be. That webinar is free and can provide a really good orientation to the new look and the new formatting. Of course, we have the directors meeting coming up in October, which seems like a long way away, but really, in some ways, it's not. And then the fall conference of the Head Start Association is November. I mentioned last time, and I've been talking with coaches about this, what essentially I think is shaping up as a coaches professional learning community, where coaches in our OPK programs are started a little bit at the Summer Institute, and we want to keep the momentum going. And so we're proposing that coaches come to that fall conference for a meeting of our professional learning community. And we're thinking that November would be a really good time for that. Here's what we're thinking. You know, by then classrooms have settled down. Coaches have met with professional learning communities to help explain program goals and set goals with teams about how to make progress in teacher-child interactions. They've identified folks who need intensive individual coaching. They've had some successes. They've had some challenges. They've got some problems they're not sure how to work on. They're looking for activities and resources. And it's a time to really get away from the program just for an afternoon and do some reflecting. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? What's working? What's not? Like that. So our proposal is to have that I would host. Anybody else who wants to play along would be welcome. That professional learning community on Wednesday afternoon, November 1st in Salem, the first day of the fall conference. Directors and leadership will be in meetings that are really around the association, so taking care of elections and things like that. So I think it's a really good time. There aren't other workshops that would be appropriate at that time for coaches and specialists, mentor teachers like that. So while some of you are going to be doing the more businessy side of the association, I think it's a great chance for to meet with coaches and have an afternoon to problem solve together. I would facilitate it, but it would be fairly workshopy. That is, I want people to get work done in a guided way. So that's my intention. And then Thursday there are workshops, conference presentations that are appropriate for ed staff. So and I'll be around for the big meeting that we're having with Region 10 and directors on Thursday. So there is a poll for this. I polled you last month, and I'm going to poll you again. So here I'll release the poll, and it's this question, which is, would you support sending your coaches to the fall conference for that afternoon PLC with me and anybody else who wants to play along? I mean, ed coordinators would be totally welcome if they're not doing coaching, but they want to team up on thinking about your coaching system. That's fine. It's a ways away, so we have time to plan, but maybe another couple minutes here. It looks like not a couple minutes, a couple seconds here. So I'll close the poll there and I'll share it. And so lots of yeses and some maybes. If you've got, as we get closer, or now, either way, if you can identify some barriers or obstacles to why your coaches wouldn't be able to participate, I would love to help you on that. I don't know if it's carpooling or I don't know exactly what would be. So let's talk, and you can follow up with me and say, hey, I'd sort of like my coaches to go, but I have this problem X, Y, Z, and maybe we can figure it out together. Thank you, appreciate it. So, there we go. Great. So that concludes the main part of our webinar. I want to give a minute or so to, if people have follow-up questions or comments, raise your hand if you want to talk, or type something in the question box. That's always okay too. Just give a minute here. Seeing nothing, hearing nothing. Oh, I have one more question. I'm glad nobody left. Phew. ELD has an unbreakable conflict with next scheduled webinar. So, so that before you go, I need your help. We looked at the calendar and we thought, okay, so that Wednesday before Labor Day does not make sense because a lot of programs are sneaking in either last-minute preparation or last-minute closures. Doesn't seem like a good time to step away. We know that September is a crazy time anyway, but we are proposing to meet on the 6th of September. We would try to keep it to just a half hour and then have a kind of an open house afterwards for people to share questions and challenges as you're ramping up your programs for next year. So we do have a poll on this. We just want to see if this would work at all for people to have September 6th be the makeup day for the August webinar. It's a chance to problem solve. I know it's not going to work for everybody. I'm beginning to think all of our polls are sort of 2/3 saying yes and 1/3 saying no. Maybe that's just how it is. All right, so I'll share this, and we've got a lot of yeses, and oh, Julie's saying change your answer to yes. It's like Florida. We're changing. You have a hanging Chad. We're changing it to yes. Okay, so again, I apologize. It's we have an all-day training around equity. It's not something that's under control. We really like to try to keep these webinars consistent, but it's unavoidable. So I think we'll have it on the 6th, and then it'll be maybe some ways good. We'll have it short and sweet, and then we'll have another one in a couple weeks after that to follow up and talk more about what's going on. Okay, with that said, to our dual-funded colleagues, you are welcome to stick around for the OPK only huddle, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Go off and do good work for the children and families of Oregon, and we'll be in touch. And I'll just give a minute for people to hop off the line if they like. So Brooke's still here. How you doing, Brooke? Stephanie's still here. Welcome, Stephanie. Teresa's here. Julie's hanging around, which is fine. Brooke, Stephanie, Teresa, any thoughts for the group? Hearing nothing. Big silence. Okay, so just raise your hand if you want to talk, or maybe I'll leave it open since there's not that many people here. In terms of OPK only, I wanted to ask how things are going on self-assessment. I got some good feedback from people about the template that we sent out. Some people love it, some people don't. We're requesting those by end of August. I'm going to stop saying 31st or 30th because I just get confused. So we're requesting those by the end of August. Anybody want to be brave and talk about how that self-assessment's going, where you're at, what are your findings, like that? Brooke or Stephanie or Teresa or nothing, nada. Well, are there things that I could do to be helpful, supportive in, good to hear, Stephanie. Stephanie says it's going well. You want to say a little bit about that, Stephanie? We'd love to hear from you. You're unmuted, so feel free to speak up. What's the process like? Who's involved? What do you find? Oh, she muted herself. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like Stephanie wants to talk. She's self-muted and muted by an organizer. Now she's only self-muted. Don't hear anything. I'll mute Brooke because it sounds like there's some background noise. Okay, well, another lively conversation here. But if you've got questions or comments about the self-assessment process, I'd love to help out. Excuse me. If you're, especially when you're thinking about those program goals, I really want to be supportive of you in developing program goals that help you improve teacher-child interactions and therefore kiddo outcomes. So that's a lot of my motivation, making sure that your leadership's connected, that your parents are connected, and so forth. A couple of questions here. Stephanie's asking about grant award letters. I can't remember what analyst Teresa said in that. Teresa, can you speak to that a little bit?
Hold on a second here. Well, I'm sort of here.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not seeing a question. I'm trying to.
Oh, Stephanie asked in the question box, will we get grant award letters by email this week?
I would love to say yes, but I don't have that answer. What I can do, because the grant award letters are going to be different this year. It's going to look more like a contract. It is going to require signatures. But I can give you dollar amounts if you need that. I can tell you what the budget spreadsheet looks like for your program to let you know what the dollars are going to look like. Because the legislature did kind of tweak the dollars a little bit in a good way. So you're going to see some tiny little increases. So I can do that. Procurement is actually going to be sending out the grant awards. So I am in constant communication and we shall see where that leads. I'm actually waiting for an answer today on whether or not I can move forward and give procurement the final budget numbers. Does that help? Is there more I can do to help you guys out?
I don't hear any voices. I mean, raise your hand if you want to talk. All right, just unmute people. Looks like Brooke's away and Teresa's away. Oh, there's Teresa. How are you doing, Teresa?
I'm all right.
Okay. Are you taking any time off this summer, Teresa? Or are you just plowing through?
I took a couple days, but plowing through most of it.
Okay. Okay. That's good to hear. And then Teresa, is somebody from your program going to the Ed cluster? I can't remember.
No, I can't send anybody because it's our fair week, so we don't have any staff.
Understood. Understood. Okay. All right.
Muted.
I think we can declare victory unless anybody raises their hand real quick. we'll declare victory, and feel free to check in via email or grab a time for me. On my signature, I have a place where you can just schedule a time to talk. So I'll be sending out a follow-up poll and things like that. But thank you for your attention. Really appreciate everybody's work. Thank you.